Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Seeds and Weeds podcast, brought to you by Small House Farm. Join us as we talk with gardeners, foragers, herbalists, chefs, and community activists to explore the many ways that plants impact our cultures and cuisines, our history, and our future. I'm your host, Bevin, and this is Seeds and Weeds. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. We're kicking off the year with a very special episode. Today, we're going to be sitting down and chat with Jere Gettle, owner of Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds. Jere and I have been friends for a few years now, so it was pretty cool to finally get him on the podcast here. We covered a lot during this interview. We talked about Jere's gardens and his favorite things to grow, what it's like living at the Baker Creek Village, some of Jere's favorite offerings from the 2024 catalog, and we also dug into how Baker Creek is able to offer hundreds of heirloom varieties from around the world, but do it in a way that honors the people, places, and the cultures where these seeds call home. It was a great interview. But before we get into that, I just want to talk really quick about this article that I recently read in Edible Wow magazine. The magazine is published by an organization called Edible Communities, and they actually publish more than 80 different magazines, each focused on a particular region. The magazine that I subscribe to, it's called Edible Wow, and it's focused on the culture of food in Southeast Michigan. But they have magazines for regions all over the U.S. So if you live here in the States, I dropped a link to the Edible Communities website down in the show notes, so you can find the magazine that's closest to you. And they also put out a podcast that's called Edible Radio. Man, they're doing some really groovy things over there, all focused on local food. Very, very cool. The latest issue has this article about winter squash. Now, the magazine's all about making the most of seasonal foods. And this article digs into the many different ways that we can cook with squash. And first off, the photography is incredible. It's just gorgeous. But that's not exclusive to this article. The entire magazine is beautiful. It always is. It's just so well done. In the article, the author talks about eating squash, of course, but also the skins of the fruits, even using the leaves, demonstrating that there's far more that we can get from our squash outside of just simply the flesh of the fruit. The focus of the article is making use of every part of the plant. And it's a great article, certainly. But what I wanted to mention is that even though the author briefly touches on the culinary use of squash seeds, they never mention pressing those seeds for squash seed oil, which to me is one of the most exciting edible parts of the plant, but no mention of it. Whole article. It's pretty wild. I know that since I press seed and nut oils, I'm going to notice this sort of like omission of information. But what I think it demonstrates is that so many people are just not aware of it, right? I mean, this is a well-researched article. There's no mention of utilizing the squash seeds to produce this delicious and delightful oil. In my book, The Complete Guide to Seed and Nut Oils, I kind of touch on this a little bit, right? Most of us use seed and nut oils in our kitchens or in our apothecaries almost daily. So many of us are focused on supporting local food systems or producing our own, do-it-yourself style. But somehow the topic of producing our own oils at home always just gets left out of the conversation. And this article is like a perfect example of that. If you're interested in learning more about pressing your own seed and nut oils, I'll put a link down in the show notes to where you can find my book. But seriously, you should check out your local Edible Communities magazines. I mean, they're just such an awesome resource if you're looking to support your local food producers. Before we jump into the interview with Jere, I just want to give a quick shout out to our Patreon community. The support of our Patreon members is what makes this podcast possible. And in turn, they have access to exclusive content, discount codes, seasonal gift packages, and our new herbal co-op program. If you'd like to check out the Patreon and support the show, you can find that link down in the show notes too, or over at patreon.com/smallhousefarm. This particular episode of the podcast is brought to you in part by our friends at Easy Swap Pots, who invite you to get in touch with your roots with their transplantable fabric pots. I started using these Easy Swap Pots last season in our container garden, and let me tell you, man, they are a game changer, especially for your hanging wire baskets, and there's nothing better than their Easy Swap fabric liners. I mean, they help the plants retain moisture, and far better than those coconut fibers. Plus, they're handcrafted right in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And they're well made too. These Easy Swap fabric liners, they last for multiple gardening seasons. And you can save 15% off your purchase using the discount code SEEDS. So visit EasySwapPots.com and use that coupon code SEEDS. Your swap opportunity awaits. You can also find that link and discount code down in the show notes. Show notes is a busy place. A lot of great information down there. All right, how about that interview? Jere Gettle started Baker Creek Heirloom Seed Company when he was 17 years old, with $100 and a tote bin full of heirloom seeds that he had grown on his family's homestead in the Missouri Ozarks. Today, Baker Creek is North America's largest heirloom seed company, offering about 1,000 varieties of heirloom seeds from around the world. Though the company has grown from a teenager's hobby to a thriving global business, Jere's passion for heirlooms, gardening, healthy eating, community, and self-sufficiency remains at the heart of the business and serves to inspire others. Jere, this is so cool, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to sit with us today. Welcome to the show.
Oh, it's great to be here, and I really appreciate everything you do. And it's an exciting time of a year, getting ready for planting and always thinking about, what to do next.
I always joke that Baker Creek is like the gateway drug for heirloom gardeners. You have introduced so many people to the wide world of heirlooms. I think you could say that you guys have inspired literally thousands of people to start gardening or saving seeds for the very first time. So I got to ask, Jere, who is your inspiration and what gets you excited about gardening?
Oh, my inspiration, it's so broad. It's just so many different people everywhere from my grandmother to, different people like Kent Wheely from, one of the co-founders of Seed Savers Exchange to Glenn Drowns and people like yourself, just the whole host of different people doing bits and pieces of the whole basic circle. Everybody has their section that they're doing education and seed saving or, educating people about what they eat, healthy eating. But as far as in the garden itself, the thing that gets me the most excited besides all the great people is just being able to see that new tomato that's coming out or that new dahlia or petunia or whatever it is, anything out there, basically something new, something exciting, getting to eat that first watermelon of the year. That's kind of what it's all about, I think, is that first, whether it's the first time of the year or the first time you've seen it in your life, either way, it's, totally a grand experience.
I would agree with that. I would say that I could see 100 tomatoes, but that first tomato of the year is always just as exciting.
Yeah, it's always, exciting. And then when you get a new variety, that's just double exciting.
Absolutely. Now, through Baker Creek, you guys offer, hundreds of heirloom and heritage varieties, historic family seeds, culturally significant varieties, from all over the world. So, all right, this is going to kind of be a two-part question. So first off, how are you able to connect with all of these growers and seed savers all around the world? And then secondly, how do you manage offering the seeds in a way that, honors the cultures and people and places that these seeds call home?
So, yeah, the first part, it's just, I guess, little by little, we've made connections, right from the start. The internet was coming out about the time the seed company was starting. So it was a lot of contacts over the internet, but also just meeting people in person, people that would come by the seed store and say, hey, I have something my grandmother grew or my great grandmother grew. That was kind of, especially beginning, that's how a lot of it happened. But now people are sending us stuff literally, about every day, sometimes a couple times a day, either an email or a package of seeds in the mail. And sometimes it's something really interesting, and other times it's something we already have or has already seen, but it's always exciting to hear from people. And then we've just developed more and more connections, from different organizations and so forth, people that come here or we sometimes go there as well. So it's just made those connections, and people are really passionate about what we do and what they do, and so it's kind of we just, wherever it works, we try to work with people and, make it so people, we can show their work and educate people about what they do. And a lot of times people are really anxious to get their old varieties or new varieties, either way, out there where people can see them.
How do you determine, with this many influx of seeds coming your way, how do you determine what's going to be a good fit for the catalog?
As far as our catalog goes, pretty much we're looking for anything that's unusual, exciting, and flavorful. So every year we find more and more new and exciting and unusual varieties. So it's always a good question. And sometimes we make mistakes. Sometimes things aren't real popular, but oftentimes it's usually when something's not popular, it's just because we portrayed it wrong or didn't give people a recipe how to use it, for example. Once people find out about unusual varieties, pretty much almost anything people are interested in, as long as they know what to do with it. It's kind of like bitter melon. At first, people are hesitant, and some people are still hesitant, but now a lot of people want to try it because there's more education out about it. So a lot of times it just takes a lot of education to get some of the more unusual crops in the U.S. anyway, unusual here, into public consciousness.
Sure, because, a lot of folks, even being new gardeners, and then you offer such a wide variety of different things they've never seen before, they might be hesitant to grow these new things because they don't even know how to use them in the kitchen, right?
Correct. So it's always partly education, partly on our part, and partly it's education on a broader consciousness of, America or society, not just America, but a society in general, trying more different foods. And as far as honoring cultures and traditions, that's basically kind of what our company is founded on, is not just the seeds themselves, but we wanted to tell the stories and make these connections between different cultures, whether it's, a gardener in Africa or a gardener in Thailand or a gardener, next door. We want to build these connections like over the fence sort of where, we're trading information with our neighbors and connecting people and having people meet people from other places and learn about what they're doing and their traditions and their recipes. And that's kind of been our big emphasis the last few years as we get more and more connections. It's trying to figure out how to bring these connections here to the farm, and they're learning, and at the same time they're teaching. So it's kind of a cross-cultural training experiences, I guess, is what we're working more and more to do. And we learn and they learn, and we each get to try each other's food and recipes and seeds, and that makes it, really exciting.
That is exciting. And, I find that too, that, when we focus on the things that we have in common, like gardening and seeds and delicious food, we can kind of overlook some of the things, our differences in a way, when we focus on the things that bring us together. And I think that's one of the beautiful things that you guys are doing there.
Yeah. And most people have the things that are different about each other are really in general minor. It's like political issues. At the end of the day, we all get hungry. We all want to take care of our, children. A lot of the political issues, they may make a big deal, on the outside, but inside our garden, none of that really matters. On the outside, a lot of these issues do have consequences, but that's the nice thing about being in the garden and gathering with friends in the garden. Nothing really matters when you're connected in the garden or out in the wilderness, or, it's all about that moment and what you're doing in that moment.
Now there in Mansfield, you guys have built the Baker Creek Seed Store. It's amazing. It's not like visiting a regular seed store. You got this whole village going on, right? You got the seed store and the apothecary and the restaurant. I always tell people that visiting Baker Creek is like an experience. And Jere, you live here, which I'm sure is awesome, but you've also created yourself a situation where you live at work, which I'm sure also presents these challenges, right? So could you talk to us a little bit about what it's like for you to live right at Baker Creek?
Yeah, it is definitely challenging. It basically got built up right around where I grew up. It was due to, financial situation. I didn't have any choice. It was a hobby, and it still is a hobby to a point, but I didn't have a choice. So I just it started in my bedroom, and then it grew to a small seed shop. And then we started adding a few other buildings, and it just grew little by little. But it started out with no choice. And now it's kind of hard, though, to think, okay, it is busy and having everything right here. But then also I think, okay, we moved 30 minutes away. I would hate to have that drive every day. And it is kind of nice that just, if we want to see how the pansies are doing, I can walk out and look at the pansies in the front yard, or walk down the hill and check the carrots or whatever. It's kind of, it also brings its challenges, but it would really be hard for me to imagine living, where I had to drive 30 minutes to work every day now that I'm so used to it.
And I know you guys are super busy there, but do you still have time to get out in the gardens, and get your hands dirty?
I definitely, it depends on the time of the year, but it's not as much as I would like, but I definitely try to get out every day in the spring and summer, and some through the winter, but it's unfortunate I don't get it as much in the winter time. It's, the busy seed season kind of takes away a lot of the outdoor time, which is kind of nice because it is also the cold season. So.
Right. Now, you guys got the gardens there, but you've also got a few different greenhouses, which allow you to grow quite a variety of different things. Of course, there's like flowers and herbs and fruits and veggies and all that kind of sort of stuff, but very exotic things too that I would consider exotic being here in Michigan, like oranges and bananas. So that's got to be pretty nice. But Jere, if you could only grow one thing, so I'm going to put you on the spot here. If you could only grow one thing, what is your absolute favorite thing to grow?
Ooh, that's a hard decision because it changes. It depends on the time of the year. Right now, it's citrus. Right now, because we can grow the citrus inside, and and with the leafy greens. But yeah, one crop. Oh, that's a really tough question. To be honest, I can't really think of the single crop I enjoy the most. Probably if I had to grow one crop, that's a tough. Probably melons. Melons are probably right at the top of my list. But there's it's kind of like picking your favorite child. It's almost impossible.
Yeah, I know it's an impossible question. And I'm just like you, man, like, hey, my favorite thing changes throughout the year. Like that first tomato of the summer, that is my favorite thing to have ever grown. But, then we get into hot peppers, and some year I'm into corn. It really changes throughout each year, but throughout the seasons too. So yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Each season it's, right now at the moment, my favorite thing to grow is oranges, but, come next summer, it'll be melons, and, earlier in the summer, it'd be tomatoes. And then, but, I also really love growing cauliflower in the winter. because it does so well in the greenhouses here. And spring, the cauliflower is amazing. So it just changes. And I also get tired of things after a while, like everybody else. So it's kind of like after a while, when having cauliflower all winter, I'm ready for, green beans or something else. So, diversity is just, so amazing on this planet. All the different things that people have selected for over the years, and different, the tomato, for example, it's used so many different ways by so many different cultures. And it's just telling the story of just tomato, and the cultural use would be a multiple series of book if it was all told. But, and that's just one crop. It's just the diversity of people, cultures, climates, and what people do with fruits and vegetables is, that's half the excitement of, growing the fruits and vegetables, is learning about the processes and what they're good for and what they're used for.
Yeah, I think that makes, gardening is like a lifetime activity, because every year you have all these new things that you can experience and try and learn. It never ends. It'll go on forever.
Yeah, it's always adjusting and adapting and changing.
For sure. One of my favorite things to do when I come down to Baker Creek is to visit the restaurant. And it's strictly vegetarian, right? But is it vegan?
It is, yeah. It's 100% vegan, and a lot of the produce is grown here on the farm. The majority is, and then what isn't is basically 99% of what isn't is sourced from local farms in the area here. Even like the rice that we use is from a local farm, and even as far as like the plates and the bowls go are made like a mile and a half from here. So all the dishware is all made here. So we're pretty much down to like the salt is one of the few things that isn't actually made here.
Wow. What's your favorite thing on the menu there right now?
Oh, it varies, but my favorite one right now is probably it's a pepper pasta with pepper sauce and then grilled peppers on top. That's probably my favorite thing right now. The peppers have been really good, although that's starting to go away, but as our peppers go away. But each season it changes, but that's been one of my favorites this last fall, is the grilled peppers on the homemade pasta.
It's got to be quite a challenge for the cooks there to be able to continually, evolve the menu with what is seasonally available.
It is a bit of a challenge, but we only have a small menu, so that helps. So we keep a small menu of items, anywhere from 2 or 3 or 4 a day usually. So
that's awesome. All right, now let's dig into the catalog a little bit. So this is the largest seed catalog around, right? So that's got to be quite a task for you guys to put together every year.
Putting the whole seed catalog together is definitely a challenge. That's probably our biggest single project that we have to do every single year is, the whole seed catalog. It's definitely a lot of editing and a lot of room for mistakes every single season. But we do have a great team, and we're always building and adjusting and editing and changing and trying to, improve it each year.
And there's hundreds of varieties in this catalog. And then there's, beautiful photos and seed stories. It's a work of art that you guys create there. It's absolutely amazing. So is it fair to say that it's just as much of a collector's item as it is a seed catalog?
I hope so, but it depends on somebody's point of view. But we're trying to make something that's more than just a standard catalog. So there's more information there, so people can use it. And also, we're trying to get the photos to the point where people look at the photos and kind of feel like they're visiting or have seen the actual place where we live. Try to bring it to life a little bit, see a lot of the people that work here, the people that grow seeds for us, and, try to make it so it's more than just seeing the vegetables. We're also trying to show the stories behind the seeds a bit.
And, one thing that I love the whole catalog, and I got a stack every year. It's a collector's item for me, Jere, for sure. I love to flip through them. They're beautiful. But I love that you guys put the recipes in there, because just like we were talking about, that helps people find new ways to experience the fruits and vegetables, which I think kind of opens the door to them trying the new thing.
No, it's definitely, I think, especially on crops that are unfamiliar, but even anymore, though, so many people are unfamiliar with a lot of basic cooking I think it helps in almost every crop, because, a lot of things people just don't do anymore, but especially on those crops like we mentioned, bitter melon, or even things like asparagus. A lot of people aren't familiar with cooking asparagus, or, Chinese broccoli, or, even like bok choy and collard greens are, again, a lot of people aren't. They might have eaten them in restaurants, but they've never cooked them themselves.
You guys offer a lot of different Asian greens in the catalog. One year, last year before, they kind of all blur together each season kind of a little bit for me. But one year I ordered every Asian green that you guys had in the catalog and grew them all. And it was fantastic, especially because a lot of them seem to be pretty cold hardy. So they do well for me here in the early spring and fall. Quite a selection of them. Why is it that you guys offer such a wide selection of Asian fruits and vegetables?
I have a lot of interest in them, and they're also, I love Asian greens, especially the bok choys and tat soys and so forth. It's one of my favorite foods, but also the demand is high. We sell approximately twice as much like bok choy and Asian greens actually as we do like kale. So it's a huge demand for our company anyway. It's gotten stronger and stronger every year. I think people like the tenderness of the Asian leafy vegetables versus more European leafy vegetables like kale, which is not necessarily just European, but it's kind of its homeland, I guess you would say. So they tend to have a more tough, chewier texture. Some people love that, but overall, I think on average, the average customer prefers the Asian vegetables. And then I think the other thing with Asian vegetables in general, they are very common in many places, but in the U.S., they have only become more common in the last, 20, 30, 40 years. In many cases, it seems like around, the last World War, a lot of the interest in Japanese vegetables in particular kind of disappeared for a short period. And then, the 70s and 80s, it started taking off again. But a lot of times then it was just like one bok choy was bok choy. And it's only been in the last 20 years or so where, people started realizing, okay, there's baby bok choy and there's the big bok choy and there's the dark green bok choy and the white stem bok choy. And the same with bitter melon. It used to be a bitter melon in the catalogs was just bitter melon. And now, there's multiple varieties. There was always multiple varieties, but in the U.S. it was pretty much if a catalog listed something, it was just bitter melon, or the same with basil. It used to be just basil. And now there's a whole host of different Italian basils and Greek basils and Thai basils. And consumers, I think, are wanting to taste things from the actual culture where the dish is made. Like if you're cooking Thai food, you want Thai basil because otherwise it just doesn't taste like Thai food.
Oh, yeah. And I think, honestly, Baker Creek is kind of responsible in some part for introducing people to all of these different varieties.
A few of them, a lot of them, there's a lot of them is broad overall, but, a few things we've definitely, like the Chinese pink celery, that's one that wasn't here in the U.S. before, as far as we know, before we introduced it about 6 or so years ago. There's a few things that we've introduced that are entirely new. Many things were already kind of introduced, but we might have helped popularize them to some extent. But a lot of them some of the things had already been popularized, but, there is a few things we kind of help popularize, that's for sure. But in general, I think it's the whole movement and consciousness toward, healthier eating in general. There's so many different players from, yourself to Martha Stewart to, Seed Savers to, Hudson Valley, on and on and on. There's so many different players that all fill different gaps to, raise awareness, not to mention all the chefs and TV hosts and so forth that show people, okay, here's, the baby bok choy. And then suddenly everybody wants to try baby bok choy.
I don't know if I've ever been put on the same list as Martha Stewart before.
But, just the whole consciousness of so many different people gardening on so many different levels. You have people that are, and the access to social media and, YouTube and so forth has made it so easy to learn about the differences in tat soy and bok choy. I mean, before it was kind of like really hard when you had to try to find it in a catalog and it just wasn't there. Now it's so much in people's awareness.
So I'm going to put you on the spot again, Jere. What are a few of your favorite offerings from this year's catalog?
Oh, that's a really tough question. One of my favorite things that we've gotten both last year and this year, new varieties, is the stock flowers from Japan. My favorite one is actually not in the catalog yet, but it's just going online now. It's the baby rainbow stock. That's probably my absolute favorite stock flower we've raised so far. It's a short dwarf one, so it's good for growing in pots, but the flowers are multicolored. They're like cream, pink, and yellow. And just gorgeous, like color combination. Stocks is probably one of my favorite new categories. It's been in the catalog now for a year, but we're adding more. Overall, though, I just love growing stocks. Anytime in the cool weather, in the winter or spring or fall, they produce more fragrance and color, I think, than any other flower I've ever seen.
Wow. Okay. And you said that one, the baby rainbow, that's not in the catalog, but it is going to be online?
It's online now, but, stocks are incredibly easy to grow as long as it's cool weather. And the thing I like about them, they're also perfect for, edible salads. They're great tossed in salads. They're just fantastic for coloring up a salad, or also they make great like jellies or jams, and they're a natural food coloring too. So that's one of the things I really, really like about that crop in general.
I appreciate that a lot because here at Small House, we have a limited amount of space for things. So if we can grow a crop that we can do many things with, something that's beautiful, something that's edible, something that we could use as a dye plant, I mean, all those different things to be able to get multiple uses from one plant, those always go to the top of my list. Those are my favorite things to grow too.
There's so many, but another favorite is the Indian snake cucumber, which is really similar to the Armenian yard-long cucumbers, except most of the Armenian strains we've tried grow about 2 feet or a little longer, and they're actually, not very edible past about 18 inches or so. These Indian snake cucumbers, which is a similar strain to the Armenian cucumber, but it's a different variety. These will grow 4 feet or more, and they're actually edible to about 3 feet. It's basically about twice the size of your standard Armenian cucumber, which they used to call them yard-long cucumbers. And occasionally somebody might get a yard-long one, but they wouldn't be anywhere near edible. And I've never seen one reach over 30 inches. So these guys on average, will be about twice as long. We grew both of them side by side. And the Armenians get fat and kind of thick. These stay long and slender like a snake, even when they're 4 feet long. So it's definitely, it's actually a melon relative, or it's a melon subspecies. So it's actually more related to a cantaloupe than a cucumber, but you use it like a cucumber, and just fantastic size to those. So it's definitely probably was the coolest new cucumber plant type thing I grew this year.
That's awesome. All right. So what is on the horizon for Baker Creek? What are the big things you're excited about doing this year?
Oh, there's multiple different things. One thing, though, we're working on is a whole it's a project that we're a breeding project. So we're working on a whole bunch of new colors of like pansies and celosias and flower breeding in general, as well as a few other things like melons and other things we're doing some breeding work on. So that's one thing new that we're excited about, as well as we've got a collection from an old plant breeder who just recently passed away in Japan, a whole collection of their celosia and coxcombs from his daughter, who he passed away around 90. He'd been doing this for the last 20 years or so as a retirement hobby, but he came out with all these like sunset shades of these celosias with the most amazing, kind of like the Chinese woolflower, but even longer threads of, I don't know what it would be called. The threads on them looked like huge balls of fuzz or fur. And all these like 15 different colors of like autumn shades and sunset shades. So I'm really excited to be growing those this year. That's probably my single biggest excitement for one project this year is the 15 varieties that we're going to be sowing. And some of them are bicolored. So one flower will be like lemon and red, or, orange and pink. So I'm really excited to, see all the diversity in those, plus try to keep them alive because obviously, they're somewhat endangered. His daughter is getting elderly as well. And, he just passed away. So these are the kind of situations we love to find and try to preserve them and then tell his story and their family's story around these celosias.
Oh, that's amazing. That's very cool. And are you going to have all of the different festivals and stuff again this year?
We plan to have them all April, May, and then the expo in September. And then again in October, we have a harvest festival here at Missouri again. So 4 festivals.
Fantastic. I'm looking forward to that. Jere, this was super fun, man. Thank you again for taking the time to be on the show with us today.
Really appreciate it, and looking forward to seeing you again. Hopefully we can catch up again sometime sooner than later.
And there we go, my friends. Another episode in the books. Big thanks to Jere Gettle for joining us today, and to all of you for tuning in. If you enjoy the podcast and would like to show your support, please consider joining our Patreon community. You can find that link and many more at seedsandweedspodcast.com. This episode was edited and produced by all of us here at Small House Farm, and the music you're enjoying right now is called Happy Ukulele by Les FM. Thanks again, my friends. I'm Bevin Cohen, and we'll see you next time.